Power. It's been said that it corrupts, but history shows us something far darker. Power consumes. In the lavish courts of ancient Rome, one emperor's name became synonymous with madness and cruelty. Caligula, his reign left an indelible scar on history, a man who ruled with reckless abandon, turning his palace into a stage for his twisted desires. Fast forward to today, and we're once again seeing the consequences of unchecked power. But this time, the story isn't set in the palaces of ancient Rome. It's playing out in modern-day mansions and behind closed doors. The person at the center of this story, not an emperor, but a modern-day king of the music industry. Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, P.A. Diddy, call him what you will, he's a man whose influence has shaped entire generations of entertainment and culture. But with that immense power and influence, something else began to grow. An unchecked darkness. In the world of high stakes, bright lights and luxury, Puff Daddy ruled like a king, controlling not just the music industry, but the lives of those around him. His empire extended far beyond record deals and fashion shows. But as with Caligula, his influence wasn't simply about success. It became about control, absolute power, built on fear, manipulation, and excess. His mansions became the new Roman palaces where whispers of lavish parties, freak-offs as they're called, emerged. Behind the glitz, behind the glamour, there were darker realities. Reports of coercion, sex trafficking, forced participation, tales that mirror those of the most infamous Roman rulers. Let's start with Caligula. Crowned at just 24, he was meant to be the beacon of Rome's future. But something shifted, something dark. The emperor's lust for power quickly turned into a lust for control. His palace, once a symbol of Roman authority, became a playground for debauchery. Caligula didn't just seek pleasure, he sought to dominate and degrade those around him. Public figures, senators, and even his own family members were forced to take part in his twisted games. One of the most infamous acts Caligula is known for was his open contempt for the Roman Senate. He reportedly forced senators and their wives to participate in public orgies. Those who hesitated had no choice. Their reputations and lives were held hostage by the emperor. Imagine the most respected men in Rome, once the backbone of the Republic, reduced to pawns in Caligula's sick fantasies. It wasn't just the Senate that suffered. Caligula would openly brag about his sexual conquests with the wives of these powerful men, calling them out by name during official meetings, mocking them in public, flaunting his power over their personal lives. In one instance, Caligula was said to have publicly humiliated a senator by taking his wife to another room during a banquet and engaging in sexual acts, then returning to describe the encounter in detail. Caligula's perverse lust extended even to his own family. Historians like Suetonius document his incestuous relationships with his three sisters, particularly Drusilla, whom he loved so obsessively that after her death, he declared her a goddess. This wasn't just personal, it was a public display of power, a signal to Rome that even the most taboo acts were at the emperor's discretion. But his excesses didn't stop with the elite. Caligula reveled in humiliating the common people too. At one point, he reportedly turned his palace into a brothel, forcing men and women of noble birth to prostitute themselves to pay off Rome's debts. Even this was not enough. Caligula would roam through the palace, randomly selecting people to engage in acts for his amusement. It was said that he would sometimes watch, other times force senators to watch, twisting the knife of humiliation further. It wasn't just about sex or cruelty. For Caligula, it was about showing Rome that there were no limits to his power. His excesses, his cruelty, were a declaration, "I am above the law, and I am above you." Now we jump to the present. Sean Combs, or as many of you know him, Puff Daddy, an empire builder, a music mogul, a man who has built a career on shaping the culture of music. But behind the bright lights, there's a grim shadow. In 2024, the music world was shaken to its core. Sean Combs, known globally as Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, and a king of modern entertainment, was arrested on charges that seemed ripped from the darkest chapters of history. The allegations: sex trafficking, forced participation, possession of illegal firearms, and manipulation on a terrifying scale. Like the infamous Roman Emperor Caligula, Puff Daddy allegedly orchestrated freak-offs, lavish, hedonistic gatherings designed not just for pleasure, but for domination. These weren't just parties, they were elaborate displays of power, and much like the twisted excesses of ancient Rome, These events blurred the line between pleasure and cruelty, centuries apart, yet the story remains the same. When power is absolute, and there's no one to stop you, what happens? The reports are chilling. Women coerced and trafficked across state lines, forced into days-long sexual acts, with little regard for their humanity. It wasn't about sex, it was about control. Investigators unearthed thousands of bottles of lubricant in Puff Daddy's mansion, an eerie symbol of the magnitude of these events. Every detail screamed excess, from the sheer volume of lube to the cold efficiency with which it was used. Much like Caligula, whose cruelty was legendary, Puff Daddy used his position not just to indulge in the most extreme forms of debauchery, but to remind everyone, women, rivals, even friends, that he was in control. And when power goes unchecked, when no one is brave enough to say no, domination becomes the goal. Not pleasure, but it didn't end there. Inside the luxurious walls of Puff Daddy's empire, illegal firearms were found, symbols of both physical and psychological intimidation. Those who attended these parties were trapped in a web of manipulation, with power dynamics so overwhelming that escape seemed impossible. Puff Daddy allegedly coerced these women into silence, using threats, money, and his far-reaching influence to keep them compliant. 2,000 years apart, but the stories of Caligula and Puff Daddy tell the same terrifying truth. When someone amasses too much power, unchecked and unchallenged, the line between humanity and cruelty disappears. Research has shown that power can corrupt. Dr. Keltner describes how power reduces empathy and social intelligence, leading to behaviors that are more self-centered and reckless. Over time, when someone feels untouchable, their moral compass weakens, and they're more likely to engage in behaviors that are exploitative. Will Durant once said, "Power dements even more than it corrupts, lowering the guard of foresight and prudence." Caligula is a perfect example. Once he had absolute power, he didn't just exploit it. He indulged in extreme cruelty, using his power to degrade those around him. Both Caligula and Puff Daddy used their positions to exploit others. For them, it wasn't just about indulgence, but about showcasing their dominance. Dr. Keltner's research highlights the psychology behind it. When no one tells you no, when power is unchecked, you begin to believe the rules don't apply to you. This toxic cocktail of power and lack of accountability creates an environment where exploitation thrives. Whether in the ancient courts of Rome or in modern-day mansions, Caligula's reign of terror ended with his brutal assassination. The man who once ruled Rome met his end not by foreign enemies, but by his own people, those who had endured too much. And Puff Daddy, his empire is crumbling too. But not from assassins, from justice. His victims, long silent, are now speaking out. And as they do, the world is forced to confront the dark reality behind his fame. The faces change, the names are different, but the story remains the same. From ancient Rome to modern America, power, unchecked, leads to darkness. It corrupts, it consumes, and eventually, it destroys. So, as we watch the fall of another powerful figure, we're left to ask, what is it about power that drives people to the edge? And how many more must fall before we learn from history? If you liked this video, then you might also like this video, where we talk about the individual roles that comprise the Roman political structure.